got a really special treat. Marsh Deane is somehow going to manage to tape as well as speak. Marsh is multi-talented. If you see him, he hugs trees. I know that for a fact. He's done it. There's pictures of him. He's got stupendous photography all over Georgetown, about Georgetown. Please welcome Marsh Deane.
I was born and raised in Georgetown County. I grew up in old homes on even older plantation sites. I had access to our river systems and our forests. I grew up playing on ancient shell middens and in old gullah graveyards. A deep understanding of our heritage and our history is so important to me. People move here and they visit from around the world to see our beaches and our waterways. They visit places like Brook Green Gardens, Hopsawee Plantation, Huntington Beach State Park, Hobcall Barony, to see our beautiful landscapes, to learn about our history, even to learn about the dark mark of our history and the lessons that shape us today. We meet the Gullah Geechee people who their ancestors survived the Middle Passage. They came here and literally reshaped this entire region and this culture that we so love today. Yet as a young boy, climbing in ancient oak trees, I often wondered, what was this land like before the first Europeans arrived on the scene? And who were its peoples? Let's go way back to 1521. Francisco Gordillo was sailing his ship north from the island of Hispaniola through a desolate Caribbean. For over 20 years, the Spanish Empire had been sending slave ships to the Caribbean islands to pillage and kill, to enslave the native Arawak and Taino peoples. They left diseases in their wake. And by 1521, the Caribbeans were all but empty of native peoples and their society. Francisco Gordillo was under the command of Governor Luquez Vasquez de Ayllón, the governor of Hispaniola. He was tasked to explore the uncharted coastline north of La Florida. He met up with another Spaniard along the way, a captain under the name of Pedro de Quejo. These men knew each other, and they knew these waters well, for they were slave captains who had been capturing people for over a decade. Their goal was to find the place for a new colony, La Tierra de Ayllón, the land of Ayllón. They sailed for about 10 days through the Caribbean until finally reaching this coastline that we now call Carolina. They came upon a vast, roaring river. They named it the Jordan River, and we believe that this was the Santee. For at the time, this was before its headwaters were dammed. The Santee was a wild, raging river. Both North and Santee combined at the delta. This river brought minerals and nutrients from the mountains of the upstate down to the ocean and the coastline. This river pushed fresh water and nutrients for miles out into the Atlantic, which attracted marine life, great and small. North Atlantic right whales, seals, fish, crustaceans, shrimp, and people. The Spanish noted as they sailed north along the coast that every river system and every barrier island was populated. The peoples harvesting the bounty of this region, the food, and shipping it up the river systems to great cities that were located inland. According to Gordillo, the Spanish had great relations trading with these natives. We know that they made landfall in at least 3 locations. They left stone crosses to mark that they had been there. They gave the natives seeds and grains, and they said, plant these as crops, for we will be back. We will be back to start our colony, San Miguel de Gualdape. One of the last destinations that the Spanish visited was an island that we now call Pawleys Island. Yet at the time it was noted for its tall sand dunes, multiple stories high, much like Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, a far cry from the eroded and developed island that we love today. The Spanish made their way into the Winyah Bay with its 4 rivers and found it the perfect place for this new settlement. They traded with the native people for about 3 days until enticing about 70 individuals onto their galleons. Once all the indigenous people were on board the ship, the Spanish pulled up their anchors. They sailed back out to sea and down to Hispaniola again, effectively enslaving these native traders. The Spanish left diseases here after they left, which would work their way up the river systems to these great cities and cause a collapse. Unfortunately, on the way down to Hispaniola, most of those native people died from those diseases, yet we know that at least one man survived. They gave him the Christian name Francisco Chicora, or Chicora. Chicora being the name that he gave for this land that we stand and sit upon today and its people. Chicora was a great speaker, and they eventually brought him to Spain. They toured him around the Spanish courts, and he spoke to the king and the queen. He told the Spanish of his civilization, his people. Now, the story that he told was very different than the account that John Lawson would give us 180 years later. An account of fractured, broken, tiny tribes of hunter-gatherers. No, Chicora would tell us of a civilization. A great civilization of inland cities with platform mounds and stone temples on top. He told us of tall kings that worshipped with clay idols. Our archaeologists would later find those idols in Etowah, Georgia. The story that Chicora told us spoke of a civilization much more akin to that of the Aztecs, which Cortez was conquering in Mexico at the same time. Much more akin to that society than of the broken, fractured tribes of hunter-gatherers that Lawson would tell us of in 1701. Unfortunately, the English would take the historical narrative, and many of these Spanish accounts were just tossed aside as fantasy. We do not live in the land of stone, and so, unfortunately, only small trade goods are left from that era. However, Chicora tells us an important tale, one that we unfortunately don't have time for tonight. Yet I believe that his testimony could reshape how we view American history. Not a bunch of fractured tribes of hunter-gatherers, but a great civilization that traded, miles of agricultural fields, advanced medical knowledge. Chicora's testimony could change how we view our country and how we look at ourselves. Now, again, we don't have time tonight, but I implore you, next time you see that ancient oak tree, think of the people that stood next to it when it was a sapling. Go online and look up the testimony of Francisco Chicora, written down by Peter Martyr in De Orbe Novo in 1525. It's the only native account that we have, backed up by Spanish testimony of the people of this land. Or you can hear the story from me. Just follow me. I'm Marsh Deane.